Hi, everyone. Welcome to the ProVideo Pages webinar and podcast series. Today, I am joined by Bill Brelsford, who is a longtime friend back from our days at Duct Tape Marketing when we were both in the consultant network. And we've recorded a webinar about creating a prospecting list using AI. And we're just going to chat and share some information about Bill, how he approaches his work with clients, and probably just doing a little bit of catch up. So, welcome, Bill.
Hi, good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. It's I have to say I've really appreciated keeping in touch with you over the years. It's just so good to stay in contact with people who know where you've been in your career, and you share some same, not just methodology, but experiences. And so anytime we have a conversation, there's always some good nugget that comes out of it for me. So thank you
Yeah,
for
same
that.
for me. Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think most recently you helped me solve for a problem that I didn't have any idea how I could solve for. And that was something we just had our meeting set up. And
Now, that
I've got
work
my
out?
notes about how to actually use a landing page for some testimonials. But as we get started here, I just wanted to share a little bit
Well,
about Bill. He's a CPA turned software developer turned marketing consultant, and he helps create B2B marketing strategies and implement them through sales focused copywriting. So you've got those
wonderful.
three: CPA, software developer, and then marketing consultant. How did it actually? I think you just probably transitioned, or you were in that software development phase when you found duct tape marketing, is my guess, because then you became a
I,
marketing consultant.
it sounds like a weird progression, but it actually just kind of morphed from one to the other. When I was a CPA, one of the things I did is I worked on large state projects that were very heavily data driven. And at the time, I was the only CPA who really knew anything about programming in our office. And so I got to travel around, and I think I opened 2 or 3 different regional offices and set those projects up. And then that kind of ran its course. And right around that time is when the internet was getting popular. That's how old I am,
You're
but
aging yourself.
yeah. And so people wanted to connect their internal systems to the internet for a variety of reasons. And they also wanted help with making sense of the new data. So I did that. And then, of course, the internet and marketing especially for small businesses, have been kind of tied hand in hand. So that's when I decided I wanted to do something like that. And you mentioned duct tape, and it seemed like duct tape kind of thought about things the way that I thought about things in terms of systems and things like that. And so it made sense to start there.
Yeah. And then the other thing that is not in your bio is that you mentioned copywriting, but you like writing, which is with CPA and software development and copywriting. I mean, wow, what a renaissance man.
Yeah, I felt like, well, thanks. But yeah, copywriting just to me is how everything that we do in marketing gets implemented. And I've always been kind of fortunate enough to work on both the strategy, but then also had to do the implementation as well. And so, yeah, in copywriting, no matter what you're doing in marketing or sales, copywriting is going to fit in there somewhere. Um,
Yeah.
so that's the part I've been really focusing on lately.
Okay. So that's a nice segue into sharing what are the services that you're currently providing, given that you've morphed and changed over time.
So it generally falls into overall strategy, which could be anything from I'm new and I don't know what I want to do, or
Hmm.
the market and everything is changing, or when I started out, I worked with everyone, but now I want to work with these types of people because that's the work that I really love to do. So it's usually figuring out, and when I'm saying strategy, I'm really talking about messaging and how they're going to go about basically getting enough sales to support what they want to do with their life. But, to me, it's like the business should be supporting their life. And so, what are the financial goals they need to help meet their other goals? And then how are we going to build marketing and sales systems to let them do?
Okay. That
And
makes
so then
sense.
when it comes down to the marketing sales piece, a lot of the copywriting piece is really sometimes it's just helping them write a particular piece or campaign. So it might be, still have folks who do direct mail, believe it or not, send out
Hmm.
postcards and send them to the landing pages, kind of the traditional internet marketing funnel thing. And then I have some things where it might be more of a whole program. So a lot of my folks still rely heavily on referrals. And so there's, how do we set that up? How do we make that a system? How do we try to orchestrate them so that we're not just waiting for them to come in?
Okay, that makes a lot of
That makes
sense. The question I like to ask my guests is, how would I spot your ideal client?
Yeah, always a great question. And probably because of my background, I typically work with people in service areas and they're mostly all B2B. I think for a while they've been all B2B. And I hesitated because I work with attorneys and accountants and sometimes they cross over, but I'm usually working with them on the B type of things. Some of them, they often have a small sales force or they're starting to build a sales force. And so they need to make sure that they can give those guys leads and guys and gals, obviously, so that they can help them find leads and that they have supporting doc assets, whether those be, sell sheets or one of the things to do. Actually, one of the first things to do is create what I call it's like a visual sales sheet that helps them answer all the questions. Like, as you know, prospect always has a certain number of questions in their head, whether they're going to ask them or not, that you really need to answer before a sale can happen.
Hmm.
How's it's going to help me? What's it cost? When am I going to see a payback? And so one of the first things we do is help them map that out and actually put it in a visual, almost like an infographic, because I don't know the percentages, but the majority of people are visual learners.
Hmm.
It just helps them talk through it and to answer all those questions and move the sales process along. So,
Yeah,
um,
that makes
so that's not really what you asked me though. You asked,
no, that's okay.
so it's those people. Yeah. So again, I guess to get back to your original question, uh, where that comes in, it's people who are very much experts at what they do, but they are not good at marketing and they often hate sales.
Mm. Yeah, that
And
that that includes quite a few people. I think a lot of people don't have experience in marketing, but then they're bombarded with all of these options and tools, and it's like a kid in a candy shop, but just overwhelmed. Maybe not even a candy shop. It's like, you're going into Home Depot or something and you're just overwhelmed by the massive selection of things and you don't know what you need to get to where you want to go because you don't exactly know what you want to build.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's
so,
a great point, and that's sort of what people do it differently, but to me, that goes back to that early strategy piece of just figuring out what it is that you're gonna do, and just as importantly, figuring out what you're not.
I'm with you. So that reminds me, we have that shared time at Duct Tape Marketing with that methodology of strategy first and marketing as a system. Another that came up possibly after you left was this concept of owning your marketing and not ceding it to a marketing agency. And honestly, I believe that a lot of small businesses don't need to hire an agency. They need to have their plan and know what they want to spend time with so that they're not just picking up the phone or emailing and saying, hey, this came up, hey, that came up. When in reality, also a lot of marketing agencies have their menu of tactics that they perform. And
Right.
who should be making that decision, whether they take on something that the marketing agency has nothing to do with? It's actually the business owner who has that responsibility.
Yeah. No,
So
that's the point, yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah,
letting people off the hook for things. I love to do that. I like using, do you remember the marketing hourglass was one of the
right.
the great ways
Yeah,
you capture the tactics that you're doing, what you're not doing, and you just get rid of some of that mental clutter in there too.
yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely, or I think we've talked about this before too, is I think when you look at something like that, whether it's a journey or the hourglass or what have you, that, when somebody actually maps out what they're doing, it often is very lopsided, meaning there's maybe lots of things at the attention stage, but nothing in the follow-up stage or nothing in the sell or the upsell or any of those stages. And so, yeah, that's a great exercise to go through to make sure that to start with, you have at least one thing in each slot before you start building the next thing. Because the attention is the social media, all of the fun, sexy stuff that everybody loves to do, and not so much the follow up and going on the sales calls or trying to sell the second and third thing after you've made the initial sale. So
Right, because first of all, we know that the numbers say that anywhere from 5 to 7 to 10 to 15,000 touches before somebody signs on. And
every
I mean, that's really bringing sales into it. And everybody wears a couple hats, right? So it's
sure,
marketing and sales. But I like your point that if if you have gaps in that journey or that hourglass phases of the customer journey, then you're likely to lose people. They're going to go elsewhere if they don't find the information they need to take that next step, which just kind of transitioning. There's this thing that you told me about that I've not enjoyed it, but I've really taken it to heart. This concept of it's almost like a sprint, like a 90-day sprint. Can you tell me about that and how that works with clients?
sure, yeah, absolutely. And that's actually for me where it came from was when I was doing software development. The whole agile thing was just getting started, and so it's the whole thing between: are you going to try to develop a great big plan, 20-page plan that maps out everything exactly perfectly, or do you actually just want to build some stuff that works and then build the next set of stuff that works?
Which
And
is
so,
kind of like the AI stuff that we talk about in the
yeah,
webinar, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ingrained in me. But
Hmm.
that whole idea of working with a client through that is we typically start with what we were just talking about is saying, okay, across the whole spectrum, what do you already have and what do you need? And part of that, sort of a secondary part of that is what do you have or what are you doing that you need to stop? So basically all you're doing is you're identifying gaps and roadblocks. And so then you can decide, okay, well, which gap, if I fixed it, would have the biggest impact to help me move forward on, in this case, making more. It almost always comes down to making more sales,
Hmm.
right? But if you were, I mean, you could apply it to any part of your business. So which is going to get me closer to my goal? And then it said, okay, so I need to do whatever that is. That could still be a big project. So what can I do in the next 90 days to move me closer to completing that thing that's going to plug? Does that make sense? I feel like it's
Yeah, no, it does.
okay.
What would an example be of this? Like, would the example of finally say somebody pulling together their mailing list, their contact list, and sending out an email newsletter? That's a project that, it's got many different moving parts, and you can't
Sure.
necessarily sit down and take care of that in one day. Um, so, can you share how that would apply to this
Sure. So
methodology?
you would pick some milestones. So somewhere in there, you have to select some software if you don't already have it, right? You have to gather and or start building a list. Most people have a list. It's just scattered everywhere, right? You've got clients and you've got lists in your accounting software. You've got lists everywhere. You got a pile of business cards that you got from networking when we used to do that. Um, so it would just be those things. And then kind of back to the strategy part is, okay, so when you have your email marketing program, what's the goal? What are you going to do? Because that's going to inform the content, the emails, whatever that you're going to send. So again, and again, but let's say this 90 days, we're going to focus on our email or building a email marketing system. We'd go through and mark out all those milestones. And then what a lot of my clients will do is then work on those in 2-week sprints, if you will. But it's really how it fits into realistically, if you are the business owner with one assistant, how much time can you devote to it? And once you know that, and then saying, okay, so I can work on that for 3 hours. Okay, so what of this list of milestones that we did, what do you think you can actually finish? And because I think that's the big part and the big lesson I learned from software and other project management is that projects get to 80% done, no problem, right? The number of projects that get to 80% and pay is probably just astronomical. So actually pushing through and getting it done And so that's why I think this whole approach of trying to make these bite-sized projects, but actually getting to a point where it's obviously it's perfect, but it's done.
That's the cue to pull up my sticky note here. Done is better
There
than
you go.
perfect. That's
Absolutely.
for those who have perfectionist tendencies. It's sometimes the mind goes so fast and you go, oh, I've got to do this, 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 and this. When you realize, oh no, I actually just need to do these two things. And that's going to get me 80% of the way there. And I'm going to get that portion of it complete. And then I
Right.
can, it's like saying a B plus is good enough. And then we move on and come back, we revisit it. But in the meantime, we've built something that's actually having an impact on our business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it especially makes sense in, particularly in marketing, but also in sales, because you don't know how people are going to react. We always think that our clients think like we do, and
Yeah.
we like it, or our spouse likes it, or our best friend likes it, so it's got to be good.
Right.
And you never know. So getting something out there to test and start to see results, whether those results are zilch or great, is
Hmm.
yeah, it's more important than trying to get everything designed. So
Yeah. No, and I've seen that with my business too, with ProVideo pages. That one of the biggest obstacles to getting started with a pro video page is that they haven't gotten going with video. And it's this big thing that really can stop somebody in their tracks and just go, no, I can't do it, because to get to
right,
the starting point just seems so overwhelming. And so actually that's why I came up with that course that I just launched,
yeah,
Getting Started with Video, so that it does break it down. There's probably a nice update if I want to take this approach to updating that course, and really looking at that as using this approach. How much time can I put in? Because there are tools and there's skills to build, and there's content to create, all of this stuff. So
sure, sure.
um,
And everything always takes longer than you think, right? I mean,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. But the thing is that if you set aside the time and it's your priority to finish it, and that you give yourself the 2 weeks or whatever it is, then you've got a little bit of leeway to play around and go, well, okay, I need an extra hour or two to finish this. Is it a priority for me? Well, yes, it is. Let me see how I can fit that in. And you get really intentional about it.
yeah.
So, yeah.
And
Oh,
that's another reason I like the 90 days is because it gives you, well, to be successful, you have to really in the beginning, limit yourself and be realistic about what you can actually get done in the 90 days. Because
yeah.
like we said, it always takes longer. And I think that's one of the things with marketing or projects is that you never realize how long it's going to take. And so people have a very optimistic timeline and they don't leave time for testing or to get that feedback or to make improvements or to pivot because halfway through we learn that people like something else better. And so
Hmm.
that I think is the other core part of that, um, 90 days is limiting, which kind of goes back to what I was trying to express is saying, what are the few things we can work on that are going to move us closer to that goal? We might not get all the way there, but we'll be in progress. So
Yeah, the focus is on prioritizing and action, right? And moving things forward. And if you learn something and you have to pivot, then you're learning from that quote unquote mistake,
right.
and you're moving forward. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah, and I
think
also
that's
think it gives people, uh, flexibility as well as because sometimes, you're a small business and you hear that, so you did your planning last quarter and 1 month in, there's a new trade show that makes a lot of sense for you to go to. Well, that
right.
takes work to prepare for and do so. So yeah, I think that's the other part of it is it gives you some flexibility. And again, revisiting your plans every 90 days gives you that flexibility without saying, "Oh no, back in January we made our calendar and there's no room."
Right. Well, because then if you make the calendar and all of a sudden things have changed, it's really easy to just go, well, that's a waste. And then
Yeah,
you just stop using the calendar and stop using that
that's a
strategic
good point.
approach. You've got to,
Right.
and then the wheels fall off the bus.
Yeah.
So, um, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I think it's really
Yep.
getting people to think differently about being more nimble and it's an approach to actually implementing things. So I would encourage people to consider that. You talked about gaps and roadblocks and really what's going to make the biggest difference in that time period. So, um, okay. So moving on. A question that I like to ask is, what is the coolest part of what you do when working with a client? Like, what is it that excites you?
In general, I think it's just because I've been doing this for a little while now, is all the different people that you get to meet and all of the things that are jobs for people or businesses for people that I never would have thought of. I've met people who sell industrial sized machines for moving and packing peanut butter. Um, they met people who sell or rent the big circus size awning tents that you see out there.
Mhm.
It's like, oh yeah, I guess somebody has to do
Yeah,
that
somebody's
thing.
got to do it.
Yeah, so it's probably just some people in agricultural world who do different things that I would have never thought of. So
Yeah.
that's probably the biggest because you always get to I always get to learn something new. So how about
I
you?
think that's a sign of a curious mind,
Yeah,
honestly. For me, I like it when the light bulb goes off and they're like, "Yes, I get it. I understand it." Because I like teaching somebody to, with that owning their marketing. That is so important to me because, it's so integral to somebody's business. And
yeah,
so when they get it, and they might initially say, "Hey, does this make sense?" And then it turns into, "Hey, by the way, I did this. Just wanted to ask you if I've already taken action on it,
right,
but this
right,
did make sense, right?"
right.
So yeah. Um, okay, next question. Is there a specific piece of a technology or an app that you can't live without in your daily life?
Um, so probably two of them. One being my CRM, but I use it mostly just to remind me of relationships that I need to stay in touch with. So I don't use it like a typical sales pipeline, like I've got to do this and then I got to do this.
Mhm.
For me, it's more to let me know what Ann and I talked about last time and that I'm supposed to call her again in 2 weeks. And
Yeah.
when I talk to her in 2 weeks, this is what I'm going to talk to her. So yeah, it's just the relationship building part, and I've set it up just specifically for it. So,
What tool
and
are
then
you using?
I use a pipe drive,
Okay.
but yeah, just because it integrates with a couple other tools. I think you could do what I'm talking about with any of the tools. Um, yeah, I
Yeah.
think I've even set up a similar system for some clients in Trello. So it's just a matter of you've got different stages. You just need some reminders. And,
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think that's one that everybody needs because data is all over. And, you may take notes online, you may take them by hand, but really they're not going to do you any good if you don't have a way to access that information.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And speaking of in the notes, so then the second one that is called Obsidian, which is
mhm.
maybe are you familiar with it? Yeah.
Through you, and I checked it out and I'm like, okay, that's a pretty powerful tool.
It's
I
yeah,
don't know that that's one that I need to prioritize, but tell us
yeah,
why
it's one
it's
of those
so
that
good
can
for
do
you.
it can do an awful lot. And some people might use Notion. So it's almost like a personal wiki in its technology, meaning you can link things together very easily. And so it's actually, I'm going to get over my head very quickly here, but there's something called the Zettelkasten method that is actually based upon this guy who was known for being pretty prolific for doing research and writing, but it used to be in a physical card box, almost like the library catalog,
Hmm.
where, and he had a system for linking ideas together. And so that's the idea. The idea behind this is to capture ideas, kind of use that atomic note theory that every note is just about one thing, and then linking them together. And then there's tools in there where you can is as you're building those, if you say, well, this is, I learned this from Peter Drucker, who is related to, it reminded me of this note that I heard from, you know, Bach, the famous, somebody in the music world. And so it just helps you not only capture those notes, but it also helps you discover new thoughts.
Yeah, so that's obsidian, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Anyway, so to wrap up here, as we really haven't talked much about what you talked about in the webinar, which was, putting together a prospecting list leveraging AI. Why should somebody watch that recording? What can somebody get from that?
Yeah. So the recording was an example of something I actually did with a client. And the reason I do that with clients is because getting started is often the biggest hurdle of getting somebody to actually prospect for new business. And so the reason for somebody to watch it would be to build a list quickly of prospects that they can go and talk to so that they can actually get out from behind the computer and go talk to people and make some sales.
There you go. I would encourage everybody to take a look at that recording, take some notes, and start really practicing how to speak the jargon of AI and how to think outside of your own limited mind of what AI can help us with these days. And putting together a sales prospecting list is a great use of AI. And I really appreciate you having shared that with us. So,
Yeah,
um, again, thank you for joining me.
you bet. Always good to
All
talk to
right.
you.